In today's episode of CaziCast, we'd like to introduce you to a personal hero of mine, Andrew Lee, the founder of Firebase, and now a funder of a new project that I'm really excited about and using almost every day, Shortwave.
You're way too kind. Thank you for having me on here.
Of course. Andrew, tell us something weird about you.
Something weird about me. I can do a backflip.
Interesting. Now tell me something that's like, some might see as eccentric, but you've seen it as a positive in your startup journey.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Although I think backflips are also great for networking purposes.
A little bit eccentric. I take a scooter to work every day.
Oh, okay.
And it looks super cool. I don't know if that counts as eccentric, but it's. I feel very cool doing it. I look cool.
Nice. And is there something that you can point to in how you interact with others, maybe, or from your childhood that has like really contributed in a positive way to your founder journey?
I think I'm very stubborn.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a common trait with a lot of founders, but it takes a lot of tenacity to like kind of see a thing through. And Shortwave's no exception. Like, we've been grinding on this thing for 4 years, and it's only now that like we're really starting to deliver some of the stuff we wanted to get done because just the basics are so hard. Firebase was the same way. Firebase was a pivot from a pivot from a pivot from a pivot, and eventually we got there. So I think just being hella stubborn and wanting to prove people that like I can do the thing is really helpful. So maybe that.
Awesome. And I want to talk about some of those like pivots because most of our audience is early stage startup founders. Most of them are probably my friends and your friends watching this today. Talk to us a little bit about, what got you from that 0 to 100 customers with Firebase, for an example.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit more background even before the 100 customers.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful here. So I started Firebase. Well, I started the company that became Firebase in 2009, and I quit my job to work with my friend James, and we had this idea that we were going to build essentially what became the Apple Pay product. We were going to build like a hardware device for the iPhone to help you pay for things, and we started down that path. And about 6 months in, we're like, this is hopeless. We have no idea how to build hardware. We have no idea how to raise money. Like, we can't get this done. Let's try something else. So then we pivoted and we tried this other thing. We pivoted again. We tried this other thing. We pivoted again and tried this other thing. And after several pivots, we built this thing called Involve, which was a chat software platform. And basically, this was back when the Facebook chat widget was a new thing, and the idea was, what if you could have this on your own website? You could embed a little thing on your own website that would let you chat with the other people on the same website. And that actually did pretty well. There were a bunch of like forums and communities that wanted to have this sort of thing, and they pay us for the privilege. And we started building this business, and we got a few of these larger customers. We called them up and said, hey, what do you like about this? Why are you paying us? And they're like, well, we don't actually like it. We hate it. But we don't have time to build our own. And we have this like little developer team of front-end engineers, and like we don't have the expertise or the resources to like build the whole system we need to make this work on the back end. So use your thing, but we don't really like it. And we talked to a whole bunch of customers. They all said the same thing. And we said, well, what if we did this? What if we just throw out the entire front end? We just give you direct API access, and you guys can build your own thing. And they're like, that would be awesome. Let's do that. So that was the beginning of Firebase. And the first customers were really a bunch of people sort of in that situation where they were very small teams, generally front-end oriented teams, trying to build something without the resources to build the whole stack themselves. And they needed something to get to market. And that profile tends to be startups. So the very, very first customer was a friend of ours, and she was building a bar hopping app. And we told her, and we had just set this thing up on like, I don't remember, like a Friday or something. We told her, hey, when you start data in this database, it's not really a database yet. Like, it's all in memory. So every time we restart the server, like all the data goes away. So don't actually use this for anything important. Just like play with it and tell us what you think of the API, and like, we appreciate the feedback. And she's like, cool. And then like Tuesday morning, we see her startup launch on TechCrunch. And we call her up and we're like, that all of that data, like you have all these users, you got all this press and whatever, like as soon as we restart the server, they're all gone. And she's like, ooh, yeah, you did say that. I forgot about that. That's real bad. I wouldn't want to lose all our customers. And so we built a persistence layer. We spun up another server. We copied all our data out through the API, wrote it to the other server, never lost a bit of data, like seamlessly transitioned over. But I think that was the moment when we knew, like, hey, like people are so desperate for this thing, they will literally like use a thing that fundamentally does not work at all. And that was the first customer. And then a bunch of other early customers were like people we met at hackathons or like other startup friends of ours. There were a bunch of kind of Kickstarter projects where people were building software through Kickstarter for like role-playing games, that kind of thing that used us initially. And then it just grew from there.
Nice. And would you say, like, what? So it's clearly a very much a PLG-driven strategy that you guys implemented at Firebase, bottom up, right from creating a grassroots movement from the bar hopping app friend to hackathons to other friends. What was the spark that led to you're going from 0 to 100 users here? That's how you're explaining it, from a really grassroots movement. Were those apps also going viral?
Yeah, so I think the insight that we have, and we were constantly having a discussion about this, but the insight that we have is that data and code are very heavy. Like if you build an app and it's storing your data in our cloud product and your app is doing well, you have way more important things to do than to re-architect your app. And it's, even if you rewrite the code, to actually like move the data off and onto the new thing in a way that doesn't have downtime is like a huge pain in the butt. So like once somebody was up and running on your thing, as long as you didn't royally screw it up, they were going to stick around. As long as your pricing was reasonable, they were going to pay you. And it was a very sticky, very heavy thing. And the flip side is also true. All the people who were not on our product that already had their stuff running in other infrastructure, getting them to move over was very, very difficult. And so everybody told us, you got to figure out a way to get these people to migrate over their data. And the reality was that never happened. Not never, but like very, very rarely. Like the only strategy that worked was you focus on new app development. But the great thing is that, like, if you look at the internet today, you know, the stuff that you use, a good chunk of it's like within the last few years, you know, starting, right? So you don't actually have to wait that long on the internet for the new stuff to become the main stuff. And so you can just focus on new app development, and in 5 years, you suddenly have all the big guys too. And that's basically what happened with Firebase. So we ended up having, and I don't just mean new companies, I mean new product lines, right? So like, you know, like the New York Times, for example, runs a bunch of stuff on Firebase. It's not like they shifted their existing stuff, it's just they built new products and those things ran on it.
That's an interesting point that you brought up. Focus on the new products that are coming out rather than trying to convert existing.
I think it really depends on the type of product that you're building. If you're building something that is, you know, fundamental to the basic functioning of the app, if you're building something that has a lot of data in it, like a database type of product, like I would recommend that. Yeah. I think there's other types of products that have a very different strategy. So if you're building a developer product that works better as an add-on, say like an analytics product or like a crash reporting product or something like that, those you can drop into any app. And you can do it later on, and like it's not as big of a deal. So it really depends on the type of product you're building.
Interesting. I also want to talk to you a bit more about the level of obsession that it takes when you're early in the stages, you're in the trenches, you're going through these different pivots, and you're trying to find that PMF. What kind of obsession does it take with your product and your customer journey, would you say?
Serious obsession, for sure. So, like I said, we pivoted and we pivoted and pivoted and pivoted with Firebase. And when we got to Firebase, like even when these customers said, "Hey, get rid of the front end, just use the back end," we still were like a long way from having a viable company. And we said, "Okay, screw it. We don't know anything about anything. You know, we don't know what our customers want. We have no idea how to build UIs. We have no idea how to build APIs. We thought we did. We thought we were smart. We're not smart. We're idiots. Let's just ask people what they want and then build them exactly what they say, and do that just relentlessly." And so we actually, before we actually wrote the code for the API we exposed, we actually first wrote the docs, and we sat down with a bunch of people, and just like this, we recorded them on video, writing code against APIs that didn't work. And seeing what they did and seeing where they paused and like doing that over and over and over again until we're like, okay, we actually have this. If this API actually worked, like people would actually use it. And that was our approach there. Shortwave has been kind of a similar journey where, we weren't as naive this time, right? We started off being like, okay, we don't know anything about anything. But we thought we knew how email worked. We thought we knew what was important in email and what wasn't important in email. And we went out and built a thing and discovered that we didn't know anything about email either. So I'll give you a great example of this. We initially, when we launched the product, didn't have a delete feature, right? Why would you want to delete emails? Storage is cheap. You can just mark them as done. They're archived. You can find them later in search if you want them. All right, that's great. And what we discovered was people are obsessed with deleting emails. And it's partly practical. Like, part of it is like, when I search, I don't want to see a bunch of junk. Like, okay, that makes sense. And like, you could have searches that filter out delete, like, done things or whatever. But like, part of it was that. But the other part was emotional. People love deleting emails. They want those promotions just to die. And literally, we considered renaming the done button to delete and then just hiding those from search results without actually deleting the data, because like, people, they wanted like this visceral, feeling of like, I killed the email. And there's a lot of stuff like that we've learned around like what people care about, what they don't care about. And there's a lot of stuff, we built a huge number of features that we've built that we thought would be awesome, that we used internally, that like no one ever touched, no one used at all. Even today, there's a bunch of features in the product that like we don't talk about very much, but you'll stumble across them and be like, wait, you guys have emoji reactions? Like, this is awesome. And they'll be like, yeah, well, that's been there since the very beginning, and some people use them, but like, it's not what's driving the product for sure.
How do you think around these customer experiments at scale and even in a smaller level to really understand what they're really passionate about and how they're thinking? I know you guys are big on having people in a room.
Yeah, just super tight feedback loops, a lot of iteration. Try to talk to people in person if you can. If you can't do them in person, talk to them live on video. Get a lot of data, stay really close to them, and test and test and test and test. And I don't think there's any magic to it. We've tried a lot of stuff, and it's not like certain things we knew up front would work better than other certain things. Like, we're doing AI stuff right now, right? The AI stuff's going really well. People love it. Like, we've got some really cool features, but a year ago, we hadn't launched any of our AI features. We were working on them, but we hadn't launched them at all, and we really didn't know how much people would care. We didn't really know, like, there's a lot of hype, but like, we'd launched a lot of things that had a lot of hype in the past, and they didn't really work, and it was just a matter of testing, trying things, seeing some early indications, and then you don't really know until you launch the thing, right? Even, your alpha group may be biased in some way. So you don't really know until you put the thing out there and see what happens.
How out there do you put the thing?
As out there as you can get it. You want as much data as possible. So, yeah.
Because I know some friends or some founders that I know, they fear having maybe their reputation, for example, being at risk, when I don't think it's that big of a deal, of launching a product that's overly buggy, or they think they take it personally as a developer.
Yeah, I think people remember stuff that, if they remember it, that's a good sign, I guess is a better way of saying it, right? If you launch a thing and it's buggy and they're like, yeah, whatever, they're going to forget about that next week, right? They probably won't even hear about it because no one's going to tell their friends about it. Like, if you launch a thing and it sucks, worst case, no one hears about it except, a few of your close friends, and they like you anyway. So I wouldn't worry about that at all, right? Like, if you actually put out a thing and it's a piece of crap, no one will hear about it. If you put out a thing and it's a piece of crap, but people really, really want the thing, then you'll hear about it. So I think the advice I would give people is like, optimize for volume, like noise. Like, if you put a thing out there and everybody complains, that means everybody saw it. That means everybody wants it, right? And then you just listen to the complaints and you categorize them and you stack rank them and you start fixing those complaints. If you put a thing out there and you don't hear anything, or if everyone's like, oh, that's cool, you're screwed, man. Like, you gotta figure something else out. So I look at I look at our support basically, and if we get a ton of feedback in support, I'm not talking about like, the thing's crashing or whatever, but like, you launch this new feature and it's not quite working quite right, but we get a ton of those, that's a great sign, right? It's like, okay, we're close. Now we just have to fix these things and that's going to be great.
Yeah, speaking of which, can you speak more about that product framework of yours on how you run product experimentation specifically?
Yeah, you're talking about the big tweet storm.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you call a tweet storm on Farcaster, right?
You're farking.
Farking? I don't know if I like
farking really hard.
Cast storm.
Yeah, cast storm.
Yeah, so I've been putting a lot of notes out there on how we ship, and the reason, if I can plug it, is we got a bunch of big launches coming up next week. We got this big AI launch week, and we're trying to ship 5 big things in 5 days. We got a team of 9, and we try really hard to be super, super efficient in how we ship. And a big part of that is having a really well-oiled machine for rolling things out to users in a safe way. So, and I think one of the things people get really excited about is they have this experiments framework that I tweeted out a picture of that dashboard and what it looks like. And we have 44 experiments that we're running right now in our product of different features you can turn on, different models you can try for different stuff, and all kinds of different UI behavior and all of that. And they're in various stages of out there, right? So at the very top, we have the things that are generally available. So any of our users, if you go to the product today and you go to settings, you go to experiments, and you go to the top of that page, there'll be, at any given time, a few checkboxes that you can click to turn on things that are at a stage where they're not quite done, but they're pretty close, right? They probably won't break anything. They might not like them, they won't break anything. But below that, we have more features that are just available to our alpha users. So we have an alpha user group that we kind of roll things out first, get their feedback, and those are people that have opted into trying the new stuff. And then below that, we have internal releases. So we dog food our stuff really aggressively. My inbox, if you look at it, is going to look very different, totally different than what you have, because I'm living 3 months in the future, and my inbox is constantly broken because I'm very bleeding edge in everything I do. And then below that, we have stuff that's work in progress that is really only intended for the people who are working on it themselves. But the nice thing about that experiments framework is you can deploy the code really quickly, right? The moment you get that code checked in, you can push it out and just keep the experiments off and it won't break anything. And that allows you to start testing things with real production data quicker. It allows you to avoid nasty merges later. So the alternative is you do branches, right? Where you have some big branch and then when you're about to ship, you merge the whole branch and you pray that you didn't forget about some weird behavior that's going to happen when all this code gets combined. But the experiments let you kind of roll the stuff out really efficiently and gather feedback at each stage too.
Interesting. Thank you for that. And why Shortwave? Why email?
Why Shortwave? I'll start with why email.
Yes.
So I'll start with kind of some of my personal motivations. So I've been doing stuff with email since the 90s. I used to run an ISP with my dad in our basement in high school, and we had email servers running on NetBSD on some used Macs. And I learned all about how to mitigate spam and how SMTP works. And so I've had this long history with email, and I think email is really amazing because it is the only truly decentralized communication protocol that we have working at scale. Right? Every other method you might have for talking to someone on your phone or your computer that's at any sort of scale is a centralized service, whether it's WhatsApp or WeChat or iMessage or whatever. And email doesn't work that way. Email, anyone can run a server. Anyone can write a client. They all talk to each other, and it works. The whole system works. Yeah. And the thing that everyone in the crypto world has been chasing, this decentralization, it already exists for email to some extent, right? There's a lot of cool new ideas in crypto, and maybe someday that stuff will make its way to email. But the basic idea of it's an open protocol, it works and exists today. There's also some ignoring sort of the technical side of it. There's some real practical user benefits of email. One of them is a usability benefit of if I want to talk to you, or let's say I want to talk to both of you, right? I don't have to get us on the same app, right? I can be on Gmail, you can be on your own server, he can be on some other provider, and we can all just talk to each other as long as we have the same email address. I don't have to get us all on WhatsApp or get us all on iMessage or whatever. The other one is a governance benefit, and this is one that's I think especially important to me is, let's say I'm, someone in an environment where I really care about my privacy. Let's say I'm a democracy protester in Hong Kong. If I'm using a centralized service, I am beholden to, however hard that provider feels like fighting against, government subpoenas from whoever wants to do it, or what the policies of the platform are. If I have email, though, I always have the option of running my own server. And if I want to really control my data, whether I'm a democracy advocate in Hong Kong, or I'm, a big multinational corporation, or I'm a lawyer or something, I can control my data end to end if I really want to. And I think that's really important. I think, privacy is important, and I want to enable that technically.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much for that. And how do you think around AI and email with Shortwave or with other clients? How do you see us changing? Email is such, it's like you said, you've been working on email for so long. You've seen the way email has changed, but also all the ways that it hasn't really changed.
Yeah. So you're wondering like how AI is going to affect it?
Yeah, basically.
So it's been an interesting journey for us over the last few years. We had a lot of ideas of like ways we could change people's behavior in email, and some of them have worked really well, and some of them have not worked really well. So the emoji reaction is one where it exists. People don't really use it that much. Don't really use emoji reacting in emails. And there's other behavior changes that have worked, I think, pretty well. Like we have a UI where it's kind of more of a chat style interface, and like people really like it. Seems to work really well. There really isn't any issues there. AI is very exciting precisely because you have in your email this incredible corpus of information about, especially if you're running a business, about like every aspect of your business. It's every correspondence you've ever had with anyone like involved in your business, both internally and externally. You have all of the emails that might come from government agencies. You have your receipts. You have all of your calendar invitations from everyone. You have, the recordings of your meeting notes. You have your Asana to-do reminders. Like there's so much information in there, and it's all textual. And up until LLMs, in order for you to like actually make use of that information, you could run searches to find the emails, but you had to actually read the emails to get the information. And as a result, you just didn't really make good use of that information. And today, the LLM can actually go read those emails for you and extract meaningful information and allow you to like have insights based on that amazing corpus of information that allows you to make better decisions in your business. So, simple example of this. When we did the launch of our AI assistant, I had to write a blog post. A blog post on our website about the assistant launch. I'd exchanged a ton of emails with a ton of people about what we were launching. I talked to a lot of users about like what were the benefits of this and what worked well and what resonated with them. And when I was going to make the blog post, the actual process was go through all the emails, including the ones about product, the ones with users, the one with press, whatever, and figure out the narrative from that. But my first draft, I just asked the AI assistant, the thing we had just built. I said, hey, go search my email for all the emails about our AI assistant, and construct a blog post that includes details of this type. And it made a draft. And the actual blog post that we have on our website for the AI assistant launch was originally, the outline was written by our AI assistant based on emails that I exchanged about the feature. So I think that's something that is pretty awesome, is this data that was already there is suddenly available for you to do things like this. I think AI is going to help us be a lot more efficient. So I think that the main thing we're focused on right now is just productivity. How do we help you triage your email faster? How do we help you understand threads faster? How do we help you write things faster? And a bunch of the launches next week are going to be aimed at those types of things. So I think it'll help there. I think there's a lot of people that are worried about ways that might change it for the worse. So, for example, like AI-generated spam. How do you start figuring out if you're talking to a real human? Or, we have summarization. People are like, well, what if I have an AI that writes an email, and I send you an email, it's a long email, and then you have to like summarize it with AI, and like neither one of us is actually talking to each other. We're both just talking to our AIs, and the AIs are talking to each other, and it's this big mess. And like, I think the reality is that that's not how this is panned out, right? Like, I look at the goal of our AI writing features to be, how do we help you produce the exact same email that you would have written yourself, just a little bit faster, right? How do we help you? So the example I showed you earlier where like, I auto-completed the Wi-Fi password, right? I would have sent you the same email. I just would have had to run the search and copy-paste the Wi-Fi password. So we saved you the search, we saved you the copy-paste in that case. The same thing with like, if you're trying to like type up an email that's similar to what you've typed before. Let's say you're pitching someone on the podcast, right? You probably have a snippet that's like, here's why you should do our podcast. And you've probably typed that 100 times. Right? And like we can just be like, oh, you're typing that snippet. Okay, we'll put that in for you.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about some of those exciting AI features that you're going to be launching next week. You showed me some here, and it quite frankly blew my mind.
Yeah, we've got some really cool ones. So the first one we're launching on Monday is the one I'm personally most excited about, which is it's a writing feature. Yeah. So basically, use Copilot, GitHub Copilot.
Yes.
Same idea, but for your email. So we have like an AI search retrieval system that we use to learn how you write emails. So we learn kind of like what your voice and tone is. We learn facts that you've emailed about in the past. And we use that to create suggestions of what you might say next. So we basically like complete your sentence for you. So you'll be typing along and you'll be like, hey, it'll be great to see you at your office at blank. And like, if you've ever sent that before, we know what that is. We can look it up and we can complete it for you. So we help you write emails faster. It's especially useful if you're like looking up facts for you, where we can be like, from context, we know what you're looking for, or if you're using like similar phrases that you've used in the past. So like I was saying to you earlier, like if you were regularly pitching people on coming on the podcast and you had like a blurb that you shared each time, rather than having to go copy and paste that and put it in there, we can identify, he's doing a podcast pitch, we'll pull it up, we'll suggest that, you can just like tab complete that pitch. And also we can just do kind of like normal predictions from language, where we say, okay, usually the sentence that starts once upon a time continues this way, we know what it is, and we can complete it. So that's Monday, is AI autocomplete, basically like GitHub Copilot, but for your email, learning from your past emails to like give you smart suggestions. On Tuesday and Wednesday, and I know it's coming out Monday, so there's a little bit of a spoiler, so I think that's okay. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to be launching our mobile assistants. So we've had an AI assistant on our web and desktop apps since September. People love it. They use it for all kinds of stuff. It gets really heavy usage. And people have been begging for this for mobile, because there's a lot of things that you want to do on the go. You're looking up, what the address is, where you're going. You're trying to like recall details for things. Maybe you're trying to like write an email, and like typing is really hard, so you want to dictate it. But when you dictate it, it gets all garbled. So there's a lot of use cases that you have on mobile that are a bit different than desktop that you'd really like to have it on your phone for. So we'll be coming out with iOS on Tuesday, Android on Wednesday, and it's the full set of what we can do on desktop. So you can write emails, you can search emails, you can analyze the emails that are in front of you, you can translate things, you can summarize things, all of that. And it's got a really slick UI. We have basically like a bottom sheet that pops up anywhere in the app, kind of helps you with what you're working on, whether you're in the inbox or in a thread. There's also like a little wave gesture, so if you like go up, down, up, it'll pop up. On Thursday, we're launching an integration with our multi-select tool. That's going to let you do kind of much more custom kind of power user analysis of your inbox. So if you want to say, hey, I want to like select all 10 emails about this project, and then I want to like construct a status update of like, or like give you a timeline of how this project has been going, right? And you can select the emails. We can do that for you based on the selection that you have. So it's good for like, summarizing projects, summarizing bundles. If you have like a bunch of newsletters, you can be like, hey, what are the most exciting updates in this newsletter bundle? I'm excited about this feature because I think it's going to allow people to experiment with a lot of new use cases, where we say, hey, what if we can basically just take the raw text of a whole bunch of different emails that the user chooses and throw them at the LLM and see what happens. And then Friday, we have this feature called Instant Summaries coming out, which is basically shorter versions of the default summaries that we have in our AI assistant, but generated instantly and put at the top of your thread, so you don't have to like open the assistant and ask it to summarize, which is a little bit slower. You can just like glance up there, see the summary, and I think the cool thing that we have that no one else has is tapping that summary opens it up into an expanded version unless you have a conversation with the assistant. So like a pretty common thing that people do is, let's say they have a long thread, they see the summary, they open it up, and they want to do things like, what are the key dates for this project? Or, who should be involved in this meeting? And we can kind of scan through the whole thing and give you information about that. So it's like short summary instantly at the top, tap it, expand, have a longer conversation.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of applications, not only in the workspace, but also in your personal day-to-day emails that you're sending. Even the example that you just showed me very briefly, that was really interesting because we don't have much of a email discourse built up yet, and yet the AI was able to disseminate not only past meetings with us and like the equipment that I was coming here to set up, as well as the context of my profile in your email of like we're doing a podcast together.
Yeah, once you start playing with Shortwave, I think you start thinking about your email inbox less as a to-do list and more as like a knowledge base, where it's like, here's all this information about my entire social network, and I know, who you are and what you do because we've emailed about stuff. And if I could have an LLM just read all the emails we've ever sent, it could tell me stuff. And so, yeah, like contacts, rather than being, having to like go into a contact database and enter facts about you, I can just ask the assistant, like, who is this person? What do they do? Who do they know? And it can look that up. It can do the same for projects. It can answer kind of any sort of free-form question if we can find the right emails and ask the LLM, like we can give you a reasonable answer.
I really like that about Shortwave. It's really applicable everywhere. Now, to move on to our last question, and we like to end things off just a little bit on a personal note. Feel free to answer or not. But in 2010, there was the earthquake that devastated Haiti. Over 300,000 people were affected, and you were with your roommate and co-founder James in your hotel room. Can you walk us through how that event might have affected your thoughts around business and life?
Yeah, actually, it has. And I've been asked this question before. So it's kind of a funny story. So the reason that we were there is we were working on a startup at the time, and I was struggling. We were both kind of struggling emotionally, but I was definitely struggling emotionally. And James thought it'd be a good idea to, as a way, to help us to spend some time helping some other people. And he had a friend group that were going down there. We were kind of helping with some stuff at a school down there. And he's like, why don't we go down there, spend some time helping some other people? And, that's a way to help yourself as well. So that was the motivation that we had for going down there. And then, I thought it was really cool. I was having a fun time down there. So I was like, what if we just stayed after the group went home? Everyone else go home. We'll stay a couple of our days, just do some sightseeing, because Port-au-Prince had a bunch of cool stuff. And so we did, and that's when the earthquake struck. So everyone else had left that morning. It was just the two of us still there at the hotel, and that earthquake struck. And it's on. If you want to read the blog post, it's on my website. I have a whole super long post about the story and the aftermath, and we were there for several days, kind of helping people out. But I think the big thing it's done is give me a lot of perspective of, hey, like, no matter how hard your startup struggle is, it's not that bad, right? Like, you got all your legs and your health, and well, hopefully, right? And it's just business, and I think that's been useful perspective on life, and I think that's the big thing.
Thank you so much for that. That's actually really useful and helpful for a lot of founders that maybe overthink a lot of things or apply a lot of pressure on themselves when there are worse things out there. And if you have your health or yourself and your ability to move and take action, that's probably one of the most important elements. So, great. Thank you, Andrew, for your time.
Thank you for having me on. It was great.
Absolutely.